So apparently now the NCAA is looking to fix the loophole that Dan Lanning in Oregon took advantage of against Ohio State late in their game last weekend. If you've been living under a rock and you didn't see it, Oregon put a 12th defender onto the field literally with seconds to go in the game. And even though the penalty was called, the time did not get put back on the clock, which was what Ohio State needed the most. Now, there are two buckets that I think we need to discuss here. The first is how to fix it, and it's actually pretty simple. One option is when there's 2 minutes or less left on the clock in the game, if there is a pre-snap penalty by the defense, you assess the penalty yardage and put the time lost back on the clock at the snap. Or you give the coach the ability to choose either. Do you want the 5-yard penalty, or do you want us to put the time at the snap back on the clock? Another option is when the referee recognizes that there are 12 men on the field defensively, the play is instantly blown dead, like when the offense false starts or the defense jumps off sides and they're unabated to the quarterback. All of those options could fix the problem. The second bucket is, what does this make Dan Lanning? Does it make him smart or a cheater? Well, to me, the answer is it makes him smart as hell. Just like Trump told Hillary about taxes in the debate, I use the loopholes because I'm smart. And if you don't like it, then fix the loopholes. You're in charge. Most rules in sports are built to help the offenses. So defensive coaches have to do mental gymnastics to find ways to gain an advantage. The fact that Oregon actually practiced this shows you how deep Dan Lanning and most coaches at this level get into wargaming scenarios in game. There is no stone left unturned. I'm sure this is something they worked on, situational periods at the end of the game week and some during the spring. So don't hate the player, hate the game. And Lanning isn't an evil genius, just a genius with an evil grin. David Cone, he's got a nice grin. I wouldn't call it evil. Former Michigan quarterback, that could be considered evil by some people in the Ohio State part of the country. But my brother, former Western State, Colorado wide receiver, Blaine Crain, 100% evil. David, your thoughts on one, do you deep down, I know that, and we have the clip. I want to play Dan Lanning admitting.
Let's play it.
Let's play the clip first so people can see Dan Lanning admitting to this. Let's go ahead and play it.
Much of the commentary world has decided and struck you as a genius, Dan, for the 12-man penalty and declared that it was intentional. Was it indeed intentional to induce the throw one-on-one against Jabbar in that spot?
He wasn't one-on-one. We actually had a safety on top. So there was so it's called dog. It's when you play, but he wasn't in extremely tight coverage, but he was in dog coverage where he had safety on top of him. And there was a timeout before that. We spent an inordinate amount of time on situations. There's some situations that don't show up very often in college football, but this is one that obviously was something that we have worked on. So you can see the result.
David, what do you think about him doing that? I believe he did it on purpose now.
You think so?
I think he did. But again, if there's a loophole and I take advantage of it, that's just me being smart.
Man, this thing is just layered like an onion. First off, there's this group of people that say, oh, yeah, of course he takes credit for it after the fact, right? Like, that's the smart move, is just taking credit for it. But you can see that the players running out there, they want to be penalized, which to me does show that they practice it in some form or another. And then you have this faction of people, mostly Buckeyes fans right now, who say, oh, that's cheater, that's a low, dirty move. But what's interesting about it is you're not running an extra defender out there to try and gain an advantage from that standpoint. You're running an extra defender out there so you can be penalized. You want the penalty. You want to be penalized for the action you're taking so it takes the seconds off the clock. So to your point, yeah, like if it either needs to be blown dead beforehand so those seconds don't come off the clock, or you need to be able to give the offense some sort of option. I don't know. I mean, we implemented something into the game where you have a 10-second runoff of the clock. Clearly, you can make a rule that does this. So if a new rule comes out because of this that Dan Lanning has done, then yeah, you got to call him a genius. But here's one thing that I think that we should talk about. And that is, if you're going to do this and the referees are not going to give you, or they are going to give you continuation, just like they would if the defense jumps off sides, then that means the risk you run is that the offense can just take a shot downfield.
Free play.
A free play, right? At that point, is it not better just to run 30 guys out there? Like, you don't get penalized anymore per extra player. So the difference between 12 guys and 40 guys out there doesn't make a difference from the 5 seconds that you're going to, or the 5 yards you're going to get penalized. Well, but you would eliminate the potential of a deep shot play taken over the top. So you just run 40 extra guys out there.
It's again.
Doesn't the blending matter though? If you ran 15 guys out there, they could call it.
Well, that's
snap, right?
well, yeah, but
Can they though? That's my question.
To me, it's a pre-snap penalty. To me, this is a pre-snap.
So you're
penalty.
saying that right now the refs just didn't.
The
catch
refs
it
have. Well,
pre-snap.
you can't break the huddle with 12 guys.
Mm-hmm.
Like so the way the protocol works for the officials is they count, right? You have guys that are designated on the field to count. Well, the minute there are 12 guys and that ball snapped, the whistle should be blown.
So they didn't do that.
They didn't do that. They treated it like an offsides, but the guy that was offsides was not unabated or had a free shot at the quarterback where you let them have a free play.
Yes.
To me, I think the easiest way to do it is a pre-snap penalty.
But so what were they supposed to do in this scenario?
Well, yeah. What happens when you run them on right when the play starts?
That's again, he was out there before the ball was snapped.
We got it. Run it.
Like, run the clip that we have right here. Let's run it. Look where the center is. Let's play it. Go ahead and play it. So they run him out. Now, I see him. The offensive line ain't even down. There's 12 guys out there. I know because the ref probably already counted 11. Mm-hmm. And then he saw the extra guy run out there. Right, you blow the play dead here.
So
All right, well, wait, hold on. The ball snapped. Now you blow the play dead.
So you think the referee has counted 12. He knows it's 12. He knows it's going to be a penalty, but they're saying we're just going to let this go.
Hell
I
yeah,
don't think
because that's what they should have done.
I think he's already counted.
Well, then why did they call the penalty?
Or why would Dan Lanning practice it if he knew it was just going to be a pre-snap penalty?
Wait a minute. If they didn't know if it was 12.
That's why I'm saying this thing's layered.
Ryan Day told him on the sidelines it was 12. He went to the refs and said they had 12 on the field after the ball was snapped.
But the rule is, even if they recognize there's 12 on the field right now, they don't blow the play dead. It's a free. It's not a dead ball penalty. But you can't break the huddle
with 12 guys.
But you can't break the huddle with 12. That's what I'm saying. The rule they found. That's why loophole's the perfect word. Because they found like a sub-rule underneath the rule that's in a... Because to me, it's a pre-snap penalty. So you get the 12, the ball snap, you blow it dead. That's one way you could fix it right there because then you put the clock back on the time at the snap. But the most egregious part was not Dan Lanning putting 12 people on the field. The most egregious part was Ryan Day not realizing that the clock was still going to run because they had an offensive penalty on a play where the clock was running. Ohio State let like 15, 20 seconds run off the clock because they didn't even realize the clock was running because there was a penalty, so they thought it stopped. But the penalty was on them. It was offensive pass interference. Because if that wasn't the case, the offense could just have a penalty and stop the clock whenever. You don't even need timeouts. But here's why, Dave, I don't think you run 40 people out there. Because there's two scenarios the way this ends up with you, right? Well, three, but 2 out of the 3 are very advantageous. Let's say the worst thing that could happen to you happens, and Ohio State hits a big play. You had 12 guys on there. You want to know why Jabbar wasn't in single coverage? Because nobody's really in single coverage, because you got an extra safety on the field. You can play over the top of 3. You basically can play 3-man. That's what it turns into. But to me, the other 2 scenarios are, one, the ref doesn't see it, and doesn't recognize it, and you're able to play with 12 on a huge play. Yeah. Or he does recognize it, like you planned on it, and you know they can't put the time back on the clock. So in 66.6% of the time, it's going to work out great for you. I mean, even if oh boy throws an interception right there, and the interception gets called back because of the penalty, they don't get that time back. What would have happened, David? What would have happened if they'd have had 12 on the field and you threw an interception and the guy ran it all the way back and got tackled at the 20 and time expired?
Well, you get an untimed down.
You get an untimed down, but it's from the spot where you were. To me, the ballsiest thing about this and the smartest thing about this that you really got to, if you've ever really been on the sideline, especially coaching special teams, is you have to know exactly the Ohio State kicker's depth that he can kick at from both sides.
Oh, they know.
Because you don't know what side. So that ball was bring the clip of the play back up. Where was this ball at before the 5-yard penalty? We talk about a game. This ball that's at the what? The 44? The 44. So a 5-yard penalty moves it up to the 39. A 56-yard field goal isn't a crazy thing in today's game.
No, that's why I was saying I thought they might kick it before they even got to that last play where Will Howard had to scramble.
But that 5 yards could have put you over the mark where now it's in the kicker's range. But I don't know what the wind is, and every time before a game in that scouting report, you know what that kicker, where his depth is. And even as a special teams guy before the game, when the other special teams unit was out there, my job before our guys got out there was to time the snap, the long snap, on the field goal. All right, they're getting it off at this time. Time it on the punt to see if it matches up with what I've got in the game or how big of a difference is. And then how far back is that kicker going? Because it's like batting practice. Some kickers in pregame, They have their routine, but they just want to see how far they can go back and kick one. It's like guys who just want to hit home runs during batting practice. So I need to know going both sides. And then during the middle of the game, if the wind changes, how does that affect the kick? So there is just degrees of opposition research that went into this play, and it is so layered. I think it's the best way to put it. And I want to ask you this, Blaine. Is this like fake injuries to you? I had so many people on the timeline say, well, you guys got after Lane Kiffin for the fake injuries thing, which is a loophole, but you didn't get on Dan Lanning about this. To me, it's about prevalence. Like, this is the first time I've ever seen this. This is the first time I've ever seen this. I've watched fake injuries for the last 5 years.
Yeah, fake injuries just rub me the wrong way. It just doesn't sit well with me like this does. One, I will say this. If you're Dan Lanning and you're running this situation in practice, first of all, who told you about this?
Yeah.
What weird staffer did this happen to in high school, like you brought up, David, that's like, hey, we can look at this late. Trust me, they're going to know how far the field goal kicker can kick if they're running this in simulations. I knew he did this on purpose.
You did. I'll give you credit.
He did this on purpose. You would trade this penalty for that time. Like, and they got to fix it. I don't know how you fix it, but you have to fix it.
Well,
now,
I just told you how to fix it.
Every coach is going to do this.
Well, okay, so for the comparison to the fake injuries, I clearly said in the Get Off My Lawn when I did that I don't blame the players because they're listening to the coaches, and I don't blame the coaches for finding a loophole. This is why the leadership of college football has to become leaders and implement certain rules to deter the behavior, because that's something that's been going on. The very first time we see this, the NCAA is already meeting about
That's
it.
what's
then why
crazy
haven't
to
we
me.
been meeting about fake injuries for the last couple
That's
years?
what's
Again,
crazy
I
to
don't
me.
blame the coaches or the players, but again, this comes down to the crux of what you were saying here. Is it, like, just from a rule standpoint, is this a scenario where the referees caught it late so they had to let the play go, or if they had caught the 12 men before the play, they would have called a pre-snap penalty? Because if the answer is to what you're saying, where no, they saw 12, they're letting the play go just like if it was an offside penalty, then at that point, yeah, I'd run 40 guys out there.
Well, to me, it's not a dead ball. I'm 99.9% sure, and maybe somebody in the chat can correct me or tell me I'm right or whatever. And all I've looked up, and I went back all through the files of coaching, I never remember a play getting blown dead because a 12th guy was run onto the field. I've seen offenses break the huddle with 12 guys and that get called. I've never, and maybe that's why the most genius part about this was running him on late. But I still, if the defense would have had 12 guys out there and 12 guys would have lined up, I think the referee would have counted the 12 and said, all right, that's 12. Let's see if they run a guy off.
Normally
they
you see this when the 12th guy is trying to run off the field,
yes.
right?
Yeah.
Because he's like, oh, I'm the one too many,
It's
and
a
he's trying to
substitution
run off.
penalty, right?
And so then it becomes a substitution. Doesn't that get blown before the ball snapped? Or
Well, it doesn't, because the reason that like Aaron Rodgers and all these people went fast is to catch you running off the field, and the play counts. The play, whatever happens during the play still counts. They don't say, oh, blow it dead.
And that's where the fake injuries came from.
Yeah, and like they don't blow the play dead, and they're like, all right, you caught him. It's just like an offsides. I do not think it's a dead ball. I've never seen it, at least in my mind, unless I've totally lost it, seen it been called as a dead ball penalty. I don't think it is.
I can't remember a time where it got called as a dead ball penalty either. But
Like-
it should be.
Well, it should be now.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why he ran him on late. Right? There's a reason for that, because in that saying, you would think if there was 12 out there and they saw 12, they would call it a dead ball, right? They'd call it pre-snap.
No, they wouldn't. That's what I'm saying. It's not a dead ball foul. It's not a dead ball foul. Think about it. When the guys are running off the field, David, because remember the new substitution rule is that it's the offense subs. You've got to wait for the defense to be able to sub back and let those guys run off the field, and they jog and they take their time. When they catch them, it's a free play. You get to finish the play.
Could you turn this into a personal foul?
You can turn it into whatever you want. Because what's a personal foul?
Well, I mean, you have to judge intent, right? That's what it comes down to. Like, could you judge the intent on this personal foul that Dan Lanning did that on purpose?
No, you can't. Just like you can't judge intent on a fake injury. You can have a good idea what you thought happened, but you really deep down don't know, and you can't prove it. So to me, you can't make it a personal foul. You can't guess that, oh, they had 12 on the field this time intentionally, and they had a 12 on the field this time unintentionally. No, it's got to be a blanket penalty. It should be a dead ball penalty, all right? When the play is snapped, even if a guy's running off, kill it. Kill it. Because if you're not going to kill it when the guy's running off, you can't kill it when the guy runs on to make it 12. The play should be stopped. Hey, the ball snapped. They snapped it. There's 12 guys on the field on defense. We're blowing it dead. Just like a false start. To me, that's the only way. That's the only way you can do it. Because there's no way to judge intent. We'd have to go through 4 years of court litigation to figure out whether there was intent
Well,
or
and
not.
that is where the comparison to the fake injuries comes to. Because
Yeah.
you can't, how are you going to litigate intent in that scenario?
I don't know.
Especially
Well-
when it comes to injuries. I mean, all I can find is the NFL rule book, when play is stopped, if Team A has more than 11 players in its formation for more than 3 seconds, or Team B has more than 11 players in its formation and the snap is imminent, it is a foul. In these instances, game officials shall blow their whistles immediately. When play is not stopped, if a team has more than 11 players on the field or in the end zone, when a snap, free kick, or fair catch is made and the ball is in play and it is a foul. I mean, one, that's really convoluted, and two, that's the NFL, not college.
Yeah, I just, even in the NFL, guys, I think we all remember Aaron Rodgers was killing people with this for 2 years because he'd go fast right after a play. The offense wouldn't sub. The defense would sub because they're not used to it, and he'd catch a guy 3 yards off the sideline, and they'd get a free play.
Yep.
Like, it's so, again, I think it can be a pretty cut and dry rule, but this is a genius move.
All right, Chad, hit that like, hit that subscribe button. If you donate, it's on topic. It will get read. We're going to start the day off with the old movie man 7. Says, fellas, as far as Dan Lanning goes, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying.
But see, like, is that cheating? If there's not a rule against it, it's not cheating. It's funny, like, football's been played for a long time. We've had the law for a long time. There's court cases that come up where there's no precedent on it. And once that happens, there's a precedent set, and they can go back to it, or they can fix it, or whatever. That's why I brought up the tax loopholes, right, during the debate a couple years ago. Look, it makes me smart. It doesn't make me a cheater. It makes me smart. And in a sport where most of the rules, and I know you guys are offensive guys, but I think you'll agree with me, and it's not just football, are slanted to help the offense, because offenses and scoring points sell tickets and get more views, and in aggregate, more people want to see a high-scoring game than a 10-7 game. Maybe not me, but most people do. So I don't think it's cheating. Well, I don't think it's cheating at all. I think it's actually next-level fairness.
So let's because you're talking about this is advantageous to the defense. I'm thinking about this in real time, so it may not apply. But is there a scenario we could work out to where this same thing is advantageous to the offense? Let's say you're trying to milk the clock because you do have the lead. You want to run a 12th guy out there to try and run quarterback power. You need a first down on 2nd and 6 or something. If you don't get caught, you get an extra blocker. If you do get caught, is there a scenario where that helps you because you're trying to milk clock?
I don't think so, because the defense can decline a 10-second runoff. If you're like, so in the offense, for the offense example, like the reason this was
But you want to run clock.
No, that's what I'm saying. So the defense can choose, if the clock's running and you're on offense and you don't have any more timeouts and you commit a penalty, you have the penalty and there can be a 10-second runoff, but the defense can decide not to use the 10-second runoff if it hurts them. The only way I think it would help you is if hey, we're on offense, we're out of timeouts, we're trying to milk the clock. Oh, there's a 10-second runoff because we committed a penalty while the clock was running, while we were trying to milk the clock and we have no timeouts. Yes, we'll take that. But they give the defense the option to take the 10-second runoff or decline the 10-second runoff. What I can't remember is if the penalty yards is assessed if you decline the 10-second runoff. I think it still is. So I don't know, David. I don't think there's a way for that to be advantageous. Hey, what's up, YouTube? Subscribe.